The silence of deep space shattered as emergency alerts blared across the celestial Concordat's frontier monitoring station. Senior observer Vexer's crystalline appendages trembled as she studied the readings flooding her display. The energy signature was unlike anything recorded in the Concordat's vast databases, ancient yet impossibly advanced. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of disbelief. These readings, they matched the forbidden frequencies. The forbidden frequencies, a remnant of humanity's last stand centuries ago, when the Concordat had driven them from known space. The humans had been deemed too unpredictable, too dangerous in their rapid advancement. The Concordat, in their supreme arrogance, had given them an ultimatum: submit to control or face extinction. But humanity had chosen a third option. They had vanished into the unexplored regions of space, leaving behind only silence and scattered ruins. Vexer's superior, High Commander Zartol, loomed over her station, his usually immaculate ceremonial armor reflecting the pulsing red emergency lights. "Verify these readings immediately," he ordered, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The humans were eliminated centuries ago. This must be some natural phenomenon or pirate trick." But as more data poured in, denial became impossible. The energy signature was spreading, like a wave of awakening rippling through the void. Deep space sensors detected massive objects emerging from what had appeared to be dormant asteroid fields. Hundreds of them, their hull configurations matching no known design. The first visual confirmation came from a patrol fleet in the outer rim. The footage showed a massive vessel, easily dwarfing the Concordat's largest dreadnoughts, sliding out of a camouflaged docking station built into an asteroid. Its hull bore the unmistakable markings of human design, but evolved into something far more advanced. Where human ships had once been brutally utilitarian, this vessel displayed an elegant fusion of form and function, its surface rippling with energy fields that bent light around it. By the first light, Zartol breathed, his composure cracking. They never left. They were here all along, watching, waiting, building. More ships emerged from hiding, carriers, destroyers, and vessels of configurations that defied traditional classification. Each one bore the same advanced characteristics, suggesting centuries of technological evolution far from the Concordat's watching eyes. The Concordat's response was predictably bureaucratic. Emergency councils were convened. Threat assessments were drafted. Military assets were mobilized. But they were responding to a situation they had never truly prepared for, because they had convinced themselves it was impossible. Deep within the emerging human fleet, aboard the command vessel Prometheus, Admiral Sarah Chen stood at her observation window, watching as more ships of the hidden fleet revealed themselves. Her uniform was simple but carried the weight of centuries of preparation. The Admiral's insignia, a phoenix rising from the stars, represented humanity's patient journey from exile to resurgence. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the calm of someone who had trained their entire life for this moment. "All vessels reporting ready, Admiral." Her XO, Commander David Santos, responded. "The awakening protocol is proceeding exactly as planned. Concordat communications show exactly the response we anticipated: confusion, denial, and delayed mobilization." Chen nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Centuries ago, they gave us what they thought was a death sentence. Instead, they gave us exactly what we needed: time and the motivation to evolve beyond their understanding." The human fleet had indeed evolved. During their exile, they had developed technologies that the Concordat had never imagined possible. Their ships carried hybrid drives that bent space-time itself, weapons that could target the fabric of reality, and defensive systems that made them nearly impossible to detect or engage effectively. But perhaps more importantly, humanity had evolved in their thinking. The fleet they had built wasn't designed for revenge or conquest. It was designed to ensure that humanity would never again face extinction at the hands of those who feared their potential. As the last of the hidden fleet emerged, Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her words would reach every human vessel, every crew member who had dedicated their lives to this moment. For centuries, we have prepared in silence. We have grown stronger not through conquest or dominance, but through understanding and innovation. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity wasn't broken by exile. We were transformed by it. Our goal is not revenge. Our goal is to ensure that no species ever again faces extinction for the crime of being different. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, taking up formation around the Prometheus. They made no aggressive moves, but their mere presence was enough to send shockwaves through the Concordat's power structure. Each ship was a testament to human ingenuity, a symbol of their unwavering determination to survive and thrive. In the Concordat's central command, the highest levels of leadership struggled to process the implications. Their entire society was built on the assumption of their technological and cultural superiority. But here was evidence that humanity, a species they had dismissed as primitive and dangerous, had not only survived, but had advanced far beyond their understanding. Vexera, still at her monitoring station, watched as more data poured in about the human fleet's capabilities. "High Commander," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I don't believe they're here for revenge." Zartol turned to her, his earlier arrogance replaced by uncertainty. "Explain." "Look at their formation, their energy signatures. They're not positioning for attack. They're creating a defensive perimeter. I believe they're preparing to negotiate." Back aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Chen prepared for the next phase of humanity's return. Centuries of exile had taught humanity patience, wisdom, and the understanding that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the power to protect and preserve. "Send the message," she ordered. The words that would be transmitted to every Concordat facility had been carefully chosen, crafted over generations to convey humanity's new purpose. "We return not as conquerors, but as equals. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to thrive. Let us prove that evolution means more than just developing better weapons. It means growing wise enough to avoid using them." The message was sent, and humanity waited for the Concordat's response. The next few moments would determine whether centuries of preparation would lead to peace or conflict. But whatever came next, humanity was ready. They had transformed exile into opportunity, fear into strength, and isolation into innovation. The awakening was complete. Now it was time for the galaxy to wake up to a new reality, one where humanity would never again be underestimated or forgotten. The Concordat's response came swifter than Admiral Chen had anticipated. A massive battle fleet materialized at the edge of the system, their weapons primed and shields raised. Leading them was the Concordat's most decorated commander, Supreme Marshal Krelvan, aboard his flagship Eternal Dominion. "Humans." Krelvan's transmission crackled across space, his voice dripping with barely contained fury. "Your presence here violates the terms of your exile. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to remind you why the Concordat rules the galaxy." In the command center of the Prometheus, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Concordat's reaction was exactly what their behavioral models had predicted: immediate escalation backed by overwhelming force. They hadn't changed at all in the centuries since humanity's exile. "Marshal Krelvan," Chen responded, her voice steady and clear. "We expected the Concordat would resort to threats. But look closely at your tactical displays. Really look at what you're facing." Across the void, aboard the Eternal Dominion, Krelvan did exactly that. His compound eyes widened as his tactical officers provided detailed scans of the human fleet. The readings made no sense. The human vessels seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, their energy signatures fluctuating in patterns that defied conventional physics. "Impossible," he muttered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "These readings, they can't be accurate." But they were. In the centuries since their exile, humanity had mastered quantum engineering on a massive scale. Their ships didn't just use quantum mechanics. They were quantum mechanics embodied in metal and energy. Each vessel existed in a state of quantum superposition, making them nearly impossible to target effectively. Commander Santos stepped closer to Admiral Chen, keeping his voice low. "They're moving their fleet into attack formation, Admiral. Standard Concordat assault pattern. They haven't innovated their tactics in centuries either." Chen nodded. "Launch the Ravens." From the hangar bays of every human vessel, swarms of small dark craft emerge. They weren't fighters in the conventional sense. They were autonomous quantum probes, each one a mobile sensor platform and reality anchor. As they spread out between the two fleets, they began their work, creating a complex web of quantum entanglement. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, alarms began blaring. "Marshal," a tactical officer shouted, "our targeting systems are failing. The humans, they're doing something to local spacetime." Krolvan's fury grew. This wasn't how battles were supposed to be fought. This wasn't how inferior species were supposed to behave. "Enough of these tricks," he snarled. "All ships, open fire. Show them the true might of the Concordat." The Concordat fleet unleashed a devastating barrage of energy weapons and torpedoes. Under normal circumstances, such an attack would have annihilated anything in its path. But as the barrage approached the human fleet, reality itself seemed to twist. The Raven's quantum web came fully online, and the laws of physics became more suggestion than rule. Energy beams bent around human ships without touching them. Torpedoes passed through apparent vessel locations only to find empty space. The entire human fleet seemed to flicker and dance, never quite where they appeared to be. "Marshal," Chen's voice came again, still calm, still measured. "We don't want this fight. But if you force it, you should understand what you're facing. We didn't spend our exile building bigger guns. We spent it learning to rewrite the rules of reality itself." To demonstrate her point, a single human destroyer moved forward. Its quantum drive engaged, and suddenly it was everywhere at once. 100 quantum shadows of the same ship, each one as real as the others, each one targeting a different Concordat vessel. By the first light, someone on the Eternal Dominion's bridge whispered, "What have they become?" The destroyer fired, not conventional weapons, but focused beams of quantum decoherence. Where they struck Concordat shields, reality briefly unraveled. Shield generators didn't fail. They simply ceased to exist in their current configuration, their quantum states collapsing into uselessness. Panic began to spread through the Concordat fleet. Their weapons were useless, their defenses meaningless against an enemy that seemed to operate outside the normal laws of physics. Several ships began to retreat without orders, their crews overwhelmed by the impossibility of what they faced. "This is your only warning, Marshal," Chen transmitted. "The next demonstration won't be nearly as gentle. We didn't come here for revenge, but we will not submit to threats. Not ever again." Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Krelvan faced a decision that would reshape the galaxy. His entire career, his entire society, was built on the assumption of Concordat superiority. But the evidence before him was undeniable. Humanity hadn't just caught up during their exile. They had transcended traditional limitations entirely. "Stand down," he finally ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of history changing course. "All ships, stand down." As the Concordat weapons powered down, Admiral Chen turned to Commander Santos. "Phase 2 completed. Prepare for diplomatic protocols." Santos nodded, but his expression was concerned. "They'll try to fight again. The Concordat won't accept this easily." "No," Chen agreed, "they won't. But that's why we came prepared for a long campaign. Sometimes the hardest war to win is the one against ignorance and pride." The human fleet maintained their position, their quantum systems humming with potential. They had shown the Concordat a fraction of their capabilities, a glimpse of what humanity had become. The storm had risen, and with it, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted irrevocably. In the centuries of exile, humanity had learned that true power wasn't about destruction. It was about transcending limitations that others thought immutable. They had turned their punishment into an opportunity for evolution, and now they were ready to share that evolution with a galaxy that had once feared them. The storm had only begun to rise, and its winds would reshape everything they touched. News of the Concordat fleet's retreat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. In the great halls of the Concordat Central Authority, the High Council gathered in an emergency session. The massive chamber, usually a symbol of their unshakable power, now felt suffocating with tension and fear. High Councillor Vexthar, the most senior member of the council, stood before the assembled leaders. "Our worst nightmare has materialized," he announced, his crystalline form reflecting the dim light. "The humans not only survived, they have evolved beyond our comprehension. Our intelligence suggests they have established bases throughout what we thought was empty space, hidden in dimensional pockets we couldn't even detect." In the shadows of the chamber, Information Minister Rylak stepped forward. "There's more," she said, her voice trembling. "We've discovered why they chose this moment to reveal themselves. Show them." The central hologram activated, displaying a complex network of quantum communications that the humans had secretly built during their exile. It stretched across the galaxy, connecting seemingly empty regions of space that had actually housed human development for centuries. "They weren't just hiding," Rylak explained. "They were building an entire civilization in parallel to ours, operating in dimensions we couldn't access. Every time we thought we were expanding into uninhabited space, we were actually being watched, studied, and understood." Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Chen reviewed the latest quantum intelligence feeds. The Ravens had integrated themselves perfectly into the Concordat's communications networks, providing real-time information about their response to humanity's return. "Their defense council is in chaos," Commander Santos reported. "Half of them want to launch an all-out assault. The other half are arguing for immediate diplomatic negotiations. They still don't understand that neither option gives them control of the situation." Chen nodded, studying the tactical display where hundreds of human ships now moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum drives allowing them to exist partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Deploy the archive," she ordered. Throughout human space, massive quantum databases began broadcasting on all frequencies. These were the archives, a complete record of humanity's exile, their discoveries, and most importantly, the true history of the galaxy that the Concordat had tried to suppress. "Your ancestors feared our potential." Chen's message accompanied the broadcast. "They feared that we would surpass them. So they tried to eliminate us. But in doing so, they gave us the greatest gift possible, the freedom to evolve without their limitations." The archives revealed the truth that the Concordat had hidden for centuries. Humanity hadn't been exiled because they were dangerous. They had been exiled because they had begun to discover quantum technologies that threatened the Concordat's technological monopoly. In the Concordat Central Authority, the revelations caused chaos. Younger members of their species, accessing the human archives, began questioning centuries of propaganda. The carefully maintained image of Concordat superiority was crumbling in the face of undeniable evidence. But it was the next revelation that truly shook the Concordat to its core. The human fleet began activating quantum beacons throughout supposedly empty space, revealing vast networks of habitats, research stations, and manufacturing facilities that had existed alongside Concordat worlds for centuries, hidden in dimensional spaces they couldn't perceive. "We aren't here to conquer," Chen's message continued. "We're here to share what we've learned. Your ancestors feared that we would surpass them. We did. But instead of seeking revenge, we're offering you the chance to evolve with us." Commander Santos approached Chen with a new report. "The quantum web is detecting massive energy signatures. The Concordat is mobilizing their entire fleet." Chen smiled. "Right on schedule. Initiate the revelation protocol." Throughout Concordat space, quantum shadows began appearing. Echoes of human vessels that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions. They weren't attacks or invasion forces. They were demonstrations, showing the Concordat exactly how vulnerable they had been during the centuries they thought themselves supreme. At any point during our exile, Chen broadcast, we could have struck. We could have emerged from dimensional space inside your most secure facilities. We could have ended your civilization before you knew we were there. But that's not who we chose to become. The human fleet's quantum drives hummed in harmony, creating a dimensional resonance that made their ships appear to flicker between realities. It was a display of power that transcended traditional military might, a demonstration that humanity had mastered the very fabric of space and time. In the Concordat Central Authority, the younger generation began openly calling for cooperation with the humans. They had seen the truth in the archives, understood the possibility of evolution beyond their current limitations, and they wanted that future. Your ancestors tried to write us out of history. Chen's final message echoed across space. Instead, they wrote the preface to a new chapter in galactic evolution. The choice is yours now. Will you remain trapped in the past, or will you join us in building a future that transcends the boundaries of what you thought possible? The human fleet maintained their position, their quantum technology allowing them to exist partially in multiple realities simultaneously. They had shown the Concordat not just their power, but their wisdom. The echoes of what could have been retribution had instead become an offer of transformation. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the Concordat would respond to this unprecedented situation. The humans had not just survived their exile. They had transcended it, turning punishment into enlightenment. And now they were offering to share that enlightenment with those who had once sought to destroy them. The Concordat's resistance didn't end with revelations. Deep within their territory, a faction of hardline military leaders had seized control of the Eternal Command, the Concordat's most powerful military installation. Led by Grand Admiral Kex Thor, they were determined to maintain the old order, even if it meant destroying everything in the process. We will not bow to human tricks, Kex Thor declared to his loyal followers. They may have their quantum technology, but we have numbers, we have tradition, and we have destiny on our side. The installation's quantum sensors suddenly flared to life. Hundreds of Concordat warships emerged from hyperspace, gathering around the Eternal Command. It was the largest fleet assembled in centuries, a desperate show of force by those unwilling to accept change. Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with calm attention. The Concordat fleet's formation was impressive, a testament to their centuries of military doctrine. But it was also predictable, rigid, bound by chains of their own making. They're deploying in the spiral of dominance, Commander Santos observed. Classic Concordat, overwhelming force doctrine. Chen nodded. And that's exactly why they've already lost. Initiate Project Mirror. Throughout the human fleet, quantum cores pulsed with new energy. The Ravens, still spread throughout Concordat space, began their most ambitious operation yet. They weren't just gathering intelligence now. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. The first sign that something was wrong came when Concordat ships began reporting sensor ghosts. Their targeting systems showed human vessels everywhere and nowhere, quantum echoes that seemed to multiply with each attempt to track them. What sorcery is this? Kex Thor demanded as his tactical display became a chaos of conflicting data. But it wasn't sorcery. It was the culmination of centuries of human innovation. The Ravens had created a quantum mirror maze, turning the Concordat's own sensor networks against them. Each ship was now receiving different tactical data, making coordinated action impossible. Your ancestors feared what they couldn't control. Chen's voice echoed through every Concordat command center. They built their power on rigid hierarchy and absolute certainty, but the universe isn't rigid. Reality itself is fluid, full of possibilities. We learn to embrace that truth. As if to demonstrate her words, the human fleet began to move. But they didn't move like normal ships. Each vessel seemed to split into multiple quantum states, existing in several positions simultaneously. The Concordat's targeting computers tried to compensate and failed, unable to lock onto ships that refused to commit to a single reality. This is impossible. Kex Thor raged as his fleet's formation began to break down. All ships, fire at will. They can't be everywhere. But they were. The Ravens had created a quantum field that turned space itself into a hall of mirrors. Concordat weapons fire passed through quantum shadows or hit their own ships, their careful formation dissolving into chaos. Then came the true masterstroke of Project Mirror. The Ravens began broadcasting directly into the minds of every Concordat crew member, using quantum entanglement to share visions of possibility. Glimpses of a future where cooperation had replaced dominance, where evolution wasn't feared but embraced. Younger crew members began laying down their weapons. Ship after ship reported commands being questioned, orders being refused. The chain of command that had bound the Concordat for centuries was breaking, link by link. You don't have to fight for them anymore. Chen's voice was gentle now, speaking directly to each confused and frightened crew member. Your leaders fear change because they can't control it. But change is the only constant in the universe. We learned that in exile. Let us show you what's possible when you break free of these chains. In the Eternal Command, Kexthor watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to stand down, not through defeat in battle, but through the simple act of choosing a different path. The Ravens had shown them a truth they couldn't unsee, that their rigid hierarchy was a prison, not a strength. You can't do this, he screamed into the comm system. I order you to fight. But his words fell on deaf ears. Throughout the fleet, crews were making their own choices for the first time in generations. The chains of absolute obedience, forged over centuries of Concordat rule, were breaking. Admiral Chen turned to Commander Santos. Signal the medical ships. There will be confusion, fear. We need to show them that we're here to help, not conquer. The human fleet's medical vessels moved forward, their quantum drives allowing them to appear simultaneously wherever they were needed. They brought not just medical aid, but understanding. Proof that humanity's offer of cooperation was genuine. Your ancestors tried to break us, Chen broadcast one final time. Instead, they forced us to transcend our own limitations. Now we offer you the same opportunity. The chains of the past are broken. The future is quantum, full of infinite possibilities. All you have to do is choose to see them. The battle that could have ended in destruction instead ended in transformation. The mighty Concordat fleet, pride of an empire that had ruled through absolute control, had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by the simple act of showing its people a better way. In the quantum-shifted space around the Eternal Command, human and Concordat ships began moving in new patterns, not in rigid formation, but in harmonious cooperation. The chains were broken, and something new was being forged in their place. In the days following the breaking of the Concordat fleet, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. The great halls of the Concordat Central Authority, once symbols of absolute power, now hosted representatives from both civilizations. The quantum archives projected their meetings across dimensional space, ensuring complete transparency for all species. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled leaders, her uniform pristine but simple compared to the ornate crystalline forms of the Concordat hierarchy. Behind her, quantum displays showed the true scope of human achievement. Vast networks of dimensional cities, research stations that existed between realities, and technologies that had transcended traditional physics. For centuries, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of known space, through quantum resonance. Your people believed that exiling us was your greatest victory. Today, we show you that it was actually your greatest gift. The quantum displays shifted, showing the moment of humanity's apparent defeat centuries ago. But then they showed what the Concordat had never seen. How humans had turned their exile into an opportunity, using their isolation to experiment with technologies and ideas that would have been impossible under Concordat oversight. We could have returned with weapons that would have erased your civilization from existence, Chen continued. We could have emerged from quantum space within your most secure facilities, ended your rule before you knew we were there. But that path would have made us what you feared, conquerors driven by revenge. In the audience, young Concordat leaders who had supported change sat alongside the old guard. Among them was Vexra, the observer who had first detected humanity's return. She stood, her crystalline form shimmering with new patterns that reflected her evolution in thinking. "We were wrong," she announced, her voice clear and unafraid. "Our ancestors acted from fear, and that fear nearly cost us our future. The humans have shown us that evolution cannot be controlled, it must be embraced." The quantum archives activated again, this time showing the true history of the galaxy, how the Concordat's fear of change had stifled not just humanity, but countless other species. Their rigid hierarchy and resistance to evolution had created a stagnant galaxy, one where innovation was seen as a threat rather than an opportunity. Commander Santos stepped forward, carrying a quantum core, the heart of human technological advancement. "This is our gift to you," he said, placing it before the assembly. "Not a weapon, not a tool of dominance, but a key to unlock the quantum nature of reality itself. With it, you can begin your own evolution." The core pulsed with possibility, its quantum states reflecting infinite potential futures. The younger Concordat leaders moved forward, their traditional crystalline forms already showing signs of adaptation to new ideas. "But this gift comes with a choice," Admiral Chen continued. "You can cling to your old ways, maintain your hierarchy, and watch as the galaxy evolves beyond you. Or you can join us in exploring what's possible when we stop fearing change and start embracing it." Throughout Concordat space, quantum beacons activated, revealing the true scope of human civilization. They hadn't just survived in exile. They had built an entire society that existed in parallel to the Concordat, operating in dimensions and realities that the Concordat's rigid thinking had never allowed them to perceive. "Your ancestors feared we would surpass them." Chen's voice carried the weight of centuries. "We did. But instead of using that achievement to destroy you, we're offering you the chance to surpass yourselves." The quantum displays showed new possibilities, futures where human and Concordat technologies merge, where different species evolve together, where the galaxy became a place of infinite potential rather than rigid control. In a final, powerful gesture, Admiral Chen deactivated her quantum shields, making herself completely vulnerable before the assembly. "This is not surrender," she declared. "This is transcendence. The dawn of this reckoning brings not punishment, but possibility." Throughout the galaxy, ships of both civilizations began moving in new patterns, their quantum drives synchronizing in ways that transformed space itself. The Ravens, once tools of surveillance, became bridges between cultures, sharing knowledge and possibilities across quantum dimensions. "The age of exile is over," Chen announced. "The age of evolution begins. The question is not whether you will join us, but how far we will go together." The Concordat Central Authority, that great bastion of unchanging power, trembled as its foundation shifted, not from weapons or violence, but from the simple, unstoppable force of evolution. The dawn had come, and with it, the promise of a future that neither humanity nor the Concordat could have imagined alone. In the quantum-shifted space above, human and Concordat ships danced in new formations, their movements no longer bound by rigid doctrine, but flowing with the quantum nature of reality itself. They were no longer separate civilizations bound by old fears, but pioneers on the edge of a new age of galactic evolution. The reckoning that the Concordat had feared for centuries had finally come, but it came not with destruction and revenge, but with wisdom and transcendence. Humanity had not just survived their exile, they had transformed it into the greatest journey of evolution the galaxy had ever witnessed. And now, at long last, that journey would continue with all species moving forward together, into a future bright with quantum possibility.